Hi everyone. Happy Friday. I can finally say that now that I have picked an official upload day, so happy Friday. I hope everybody had a good week. Today's video is the time lapse for this Hecate or Hecate. How do you pronounce that? I say Hecate, but I kind of only ever said it in my head. Saying it out loud, I'm not quite confident in that pronunciation. But anywho, she is a Greek goddess or a Titaness, but this is the version of her from Lore Olympus, as you all know by now is my absolute favorite webcomic. I would just say one of my favorite stories of all time. I love it so much. I love the illustration, I love the story writing, I love the reinterpretation of the Greek myths. It's just an all-around amazing story, and the author and creator, Rachel, she does such an amazing job with handling so many heavy topics, and the way she just modernizes these characters. I love it. I mean, it's just, I could gush about it forever, but that's not what we're talking about today. Today we are talking about my painting of Hecate. It still just sounds so weird to say it out loud. Well, I'll have to get over that. So, Hecate lives in the underworld. In the comic, there's a lot of really dark blue tones and themes, and she herself has blue skin. But yep, so I really wanted to capture that blue theme that we see in the underworld. And I had to find a way to differentiate between her skin tone and the actual background that I was going for. So, there was O'Malley, who of course can never not walk across my paintings lately. She has become the best and worst little art assistant out there. But yep, so I had to find a way to balance the blue tones for the background and also not have it too matchy-matchy with her skin tone. So what I did here was I layered a bunch of different blues and did that salt effect to kind of make it really just, I don't know, not splotchy, that's not the right word because splotchy sounds bad, but just this really blended, intricate, I don't know, just really unique background that shows off the different shades of blue. And I think it really kind of captured that magic essence about her. Oh yes, so another thing about Hecate is that she is the goddess of witchcraft and magic, and I really wanted something that did kind of have that like semi-spooky but really just like otherworldly theme. And so I think the salt textures really did a fantastic job with that. Another reason I really like using salt is because some of my watercolors, they don't blend very well together. Some of the colors just don't go. You can really see a separation in the layers. And so the salt kind of masks that. You can hide it really well by doing these multiple layers of salt splotches. And it just makes it, I don't know, it makes the backgrounds look more interesting when you add that element to it. So it really came in handy here, and I definitely went kind of crazy with it, but in a good way, I would say. So a couple chapters ago, we got this amazing kind of surprise shot of Hecate in the comic, where she reveals her true primordial form, and she has 3 heads or 3 faces depending on the actual myth itself. And I really loved that concept of her, and I was like, oh, I have to make a painting out of this. So I didn't do an exact scene recreation. I kind of just took that scene as inspiration to make my version of Hecate. And so we have her 3 heads. She has 6 arms, which was such a pain to draw. I don't know why I decided. It was just too cool to pass up, but then I was like, oh no, I have to draw 6 hands, and I have to make sure that everything is cohesive and is somewhat of the same proportions, and it took me a couple tries, but I think I did a really good job. But yep, and I wanted to give her a different outfit than what we see her in the comic. Most of the time in the comic, she's very fashion forward, like very Vogue, kind of like Italian Milan fashionista. which I love. She is just a business babe the whole time we see her, and her outfits are amazing. But I really love that like Greek goddess fashion, and just those styles of what they would have been wearing kind of in the traditional sense. So I did change her outfit. I did want to give her something just a little bit more of that goddess vibe. But of course I put her in all black because we mainly see her in navy blues and dark colors and black primarily. So I did keep that. I will admit to having a couple of hard moments with this painting. Like I said, my colors don't always blend so well. Right here you can see I'm using those cheap cake paints that I've been using for years, and I will swear up and down that they are good to use. Even though they're cheap and made for children, you can still make great paintings with them, but there are some setbacks. And one of my setbacks was just that I had a really hard time getting everything to blend and dry the same consistency. So there was a lot of splotchiness going on. And off camera, O'Malley had gotten into the room when I was away and had walked across the painting with dirty little paw prints, and I had to try to wash her paw prints off, and that did damage the paper, causing some of the paints to blend even worse. So there were some times where I wanted to give up on this painting, and I was terrified that it wasn't going to work, I wasn't going to be able to fix it. And usually when it comes to fan art, I put extra pressure on myself because I know more people are likely to see it because it is a more popular subject. And I really wanted to give up a couple of times, but I put too much work into creating the sketch that I didn't want to give up halfway through the painting. And I'm glad that I did push through it, because I think it came out really nice in the end. And apparently a lot of other people did too, because it actually had a really great reaction on the internet, which I appreciate. I always get nervous putting myself and my art out there when it's something that I know a lot of people are going to see. And there was nothing but positive responses to this painting. So that was a great confidence booster. So far in the comic, we haven't seen much of Hecate other than a supporting character, which is fine. The majority of characters in Lore Olympus are supported characters. That's just the case with a storyline that's so big. There's so many gods and goddesses featured in it, so most of them are going to be supporting characters because it's the story centered around Hades and Persephone. But I love what we've seen of Hecate so far. I would love to see more of her. She's essentially Hades' best friend, I would say pretty much only friend until Persephone comes along, and their relationship is very supportive, I would say almost sibling-like, and I really like that. I really love her as a character. I think she is a great kind of guiding character to their story. She's almost like that, I would say kind of like the Gandalf to their story, that she really leads Hades in certain directions and kind of not manipulates, a little manipulating, but not in a bad way. Like, she does it for the greater good of his well-being, but she does kind of know more than she lets on, and it's a fun character. I do really enjoy her, that she does have that kind of chaotic older sister essence about her. And we just recently learned that she was actually Hades' first friend when he descended to the underworld, and so that plays a big role in their relationship as well. And I get excited every time she shows up in a chapter because I just would love to see more of her. and to learn more about her. So with the shading and everything here and the detailing, it was really hard to keep using blue, but to make sure that it didn't become muddy. And that's something that I struggle every time I do a Lore Olympus illustration, is because the characters are monochromatic. You have to find ways to blend and add definition and finish rendering the characters while only using a certain set of colors. Thankfully, blue has a lot of different variations, so it wasn't as hard as, say, like when I painted Hera or if I paint Persephone. Those were a lot harder. I definitely had more options with blue tones to improve on her skin, especially right there you could see that shoulder. That's where a lot of the splotchy happened, because that's where the paper was damaged. So I really had to find a way to work around that and make it work in the painting. And I definitely had, if I was using a different color, it might not have gone as well as it did. Which is also why blue is one of my favorite colors to paint with. It just really works well every time I need it. This was a great way to practice painting and drawing hands. I don't know why I put myself through this. It obviously paid off in the end, but it didn't occur to me when I was like, oh yes, I'm gonna paint Hecate in her amazing primordial form, and then, as I start to sketch it, I go, oh no, she has so many hands. Why would I do this? But it all worked out. It was fun trying to look up different poses for hands, because I didn't want every hand to look the same. I wanted them each to be doing their own pose, just to make it more dynamic and not so copy-paste. Same with her faces. I wanted them each to be doing something different. And I think I definitely succeeded at that, and I am really proud of myself for all the different elements that came together in this painting. There were a lot of parts that could have gone terribly wrong, and I don't always like to compliment myself, but I think that this is a painting that I'm gonna give myself a little pat on the back for. Even at this stage in the painting, though, I was very worried about her skin being still too matchy-matchy with the background. But I think it was fine nonetheless. Once I do all those finishing details, you can kind of see the separation, but I was nervous about it. And this is the first painting I believe I've done that really went beyond the border, if that makes sense. So what I did was I taped off a square for the interior where the background was going to be, and then I have a separate outside square that really is the ending of the painting, because I did want some of her hands, and she does have a crescent moon above her head. I wanted those to be outside of the natural border of the background. So this is one of those parts where it's trust the process. There's always an in-between ugly stage to every painting. And this was definitely the in-between ugly stage. I was really frustrated because my black watercolor cake was it was acting like a cheap watercolor cake. It was drying inconsistently, it was splotchy, you could see all the streak marks, and I was just panicking at this point because I couldn't get it to look consistent. Thankfully, I remembered that I have a bottle of black ink that I used for all of my Inktober pieces, and I was able to use that to cover up most of this black. But I was very upset because I was worried that if I did the black ink, it would just lose all of the shape and some of the detail that I had put into her dress. But it worked out in the end, but it was a lot of what could possibly go wrong next kept happening with this painting. There were too many things that just weren't working out. And I'm really glad that I didn't quit, because it did all come together in the end. I just had to trust myself, and I made it work. But there were a couple times where I just was like, I'm a failure. This was a terrible idea. You can see here, I kind of keep pausing and just staring at the painting because I am just doubting all of my decisions at this point. I'm doubting any of my abilities, and I'm really trying to not quit is what's happening. So sometimes you just have to keep going and believe in yourself and it'll work out. And the black ink ended up giving it a really nice like sheen to it. It looked kind of glossy. And that really, I think, made the dress even more impressive. So that definitely worked out in the end. Because there are so many parts to this painting, I did do things in a little bit of a different order than I normally do. Like normally I end by detailing the eyelashes in the eyes, but because I knew I was done with her face at this point, I just went ahead and did that anyways. Also because I needed a break from the actual painting because I was getting so frustrated, I was like, let me work on something that I know I can't mess up. So I do kind of jump around in order during this painting. So I went back to trusting the cake paint to do her hair because I didn't want to lose the detailing in the hair, and the ink dries very dark and consistent, which is great for certain things, but for her hair I wanted there to be a little bit of separation of detail, and because the cake watercolor dries pretty see-through, that worked out better for what I was going for, because at least that way I knew I could layer on the details and paint it in sections, so it still looked consistent. Even though it's not always consistent, I was able to make it work for me in these small parts rather than how it was on her dress, because that was just too big of a surface area to make it work. This is really, I think, when I started getting excited again about the painting. When I did the hair and really saw the details coming together, that's when I was like, oh yes, it's still great. We're still getting somewhere. I can still be excited about it. Oh, there's O'Malley again, the nosiest little cat. So I originally wasn't going to do the details on the dress in white, but because the ink was so dark and dense, some of those details were lost, but I think it worked out to do it in the white. It really just gave that extra pop to the detailing that I wouldn't have done otherwise. So that worked out. And of course there's gold ink, because I never do a single painting without finding some reason to do gold ink. It's my favorite thing in the world. And so all of her arms do have these kind of like golden rope bracelets, but they're all in different places. So one arm, I think 2 arms have it on the wrist, 2 on the forearms, and then 2 on the bicep. And her belt has 3 circles for her 3 heads. I just really liked the idea of symmetry for this painting, and it was something that I played around with, and I do really like how all of the details turned out. I don't usually add so much detail to my paintings. I really wanted to just go the extra mile with this one. And I wanted it to kind of be inspiration for me to do more elements in my future paintings. I really love that multi-tone effect that the background turned out to be, especially when you see the painting upside down and you really notice just the difference in the colors. I really like how that turned out. This is another one of those paintings that I had to keep rotating and turning to make sure I got the details correct, but also didn't smudge any of the other details while I was working on it. I really would love to do this style of illustration for more Lore Olympus characters. My problem is it's a lot of pressure when I do it. I put so much pressure on myself to make it amazing is kind of what I tell myself. If it's not amazing, if it's not perfect, don't do it. I actually had sketched one a couple years ago of Artemis that I never brought myself to paint because I felt like the sketch itself wasn't good enough. But maybe I should go back to that. I would love to do an updated, more intense portrait of Hera at some point too. And I've only ever done little tiny paintings of Persephone. I haven't done like one big illustration of her, which is a crime. I really should, but maybe I will do a good chunk of them at some point. I don't know. I would say they're good portfolio pieces. I also can't, not that I can't, I don't enjoy illustrating men. I probably actually could say that I can't at this point because it's been years since I've drawn a man. So I'm sure I am lacking in that ability, and there's a lot of equally interesting male characters, a lot of the gods in Lore Olympus. And, I don't know, it would maybe feel wrong to exclude them if I were to do a series of these illustrations, but we'll see what happens. Maybe I will illustrate a man at some point, just for Lore Olympus. Oh, and I love this part. Of course, I had to give her black nail polish. It's not something, I don't usually care about nail polish for a lot of my illustrations, but she just needed it, and it really gives her hands that extra little something that makes them stand out against the background, and I think it was definitely worth it. So as you can see, I had to retape the illustration because there are more details yet to come that I needed the painting in a stationary position for. But I'm still kind of jumping around. I'm procrastinating. I'm nervous about the next gold detailing that needs to be added. So I'm doing these little bits and pieces to kind of get myself psyched up because I'm worried that I'm going to ruin it. I don't know if any of you guys ever do that with, not even if you're not an artist, but just with anything in life, if you're worried about something. Do you do like other things that you know you can't do wrong just so you can be like, yeah, look at me, I'm still accomplished, and then you go and tackle the thing that you were worried about? I do that a lot. I do really love how this did come out looking very witchy. Like, even if you didn't know who the character was, I think it still definitely reads as like primordial magic, which I would say is a win. So here's me trying to get the shape of the detailing I'm going to be adding in the background. And is it even? I don't know. But at some point I had to kind of tell myself, even if it's not, who cares? Just do it. If you don't do it, you know, you're going to talk yourself out of it, so. And I do really like how it turned out, that style of having the detailing go beyond that first border. I think it just adds a little extra pop. I wasn't really sure how to like interpret magic. And that's not necessarily what these gold details are. It's not like it's actively her using magic, but it was something that I just like, I don't know, I just wanted to do something. I'm trying to learn to be more interesting with the backgrounds of my illustrations, just to add more elements to them. I debated on if I wanted to put in white detailing in her hair. Normally I like a little bit of shine. Well, actually, I kind of go back and forth on if I put shine into a character's hair or not. It really just depends. A lot of people have said that this illustration gives them like tarot card vibes, and I definitely see that. That is something that I would love to do at some point, but it's a lot of work. It's like 72 illustrations. So, you know, but I do see why they get that idea. And that, I think, I mean, that's a huge compliment to me, that somebody thinks that my illustration style and my painting style has, you know, like tarot card vibes or oracle card themes to them. I love that. I love that idea. And that is just a huge compliment to me. I love how much gold I let myself use in this painting. There's so much gold, and it is just, I love it. Can never have enough gold. In the end, I did, as you can see, put the highlights in her hair. It needed that little extra pop, but I could have gotten away with not doing it also. I liked it both ways. Alright, and here she is. This has definitely inspired me to take more time on my illustrations and just put the time in to do those details, because it really paid off. And I'm so glad that so many people really loved this painting, and I'm happy to do more in the future. Thank you for watching!